Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/getstarted. That's GREENLIGHT.com/getstarted.
And so I said to her, well, are you sweating the garlic?
And what did she say?
Well, she uses the stuff from the jar, man.
No.
I know. I'm speechless, man. But anyway.
And you have the latest Kanye posts.
I'm trying, man. It's so many, though.
That's fine. That's fine. We can fill with Britney photos Noah got.
Okay.
Hey, guys, what you doing?
Oh, hey, Cecil. Well, we figured since we're doing sort of like celebrity gossip episode of the podcast about Alice Roosevelt, that we would want to do our own research.
Yes, and have backups. So, for instance, can anyone tell me who Pete Davidson is dating right now?
I was checking. I am not sure.
Okay, get on that. Get me rumors. Give me anything you could do.
Okay.
Guys. I didn't choose Alice Roosevelt as some cheap celebrity gossip. I chose her because she's an absolute powerhouse historical figure, wildly independent for her time, and a great example of how women change their fate in face of the odds.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, great. So who do I send my nudes to then?
Same thing we tell you every week, man. Just throw them out.
But I'm doing a dance in these.
Still.
More now. More.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts. Because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Eli Bosnick, and I'll be dishing up the hottest celebrity gossip from the turn of the last century, but I'll need a cast of hard-nosed reporters ready to dig up the dirt. There's a lot of dig metaphors in reporting. First up, two hardworking men with their noses to the grindstone, Cecil and Noah.
I have to keep my nose to the grindstone because my eyes stopped working at 40. So.
Well, I just have a very large nose that I'd like to whittle down.
And also joining us tonight, we have two celebrity debutantes whose hijinks are in every London periodical, Tom and Heath.
Okay, all I care about in the entire world right now is your accidental creation of a portmanteau of debutante and taunt to create the debutante. That is perfection, actually.
Also, if debutante balls were me and Tom in formal wear getting roasted and taunted, I will be
100%.
I've
Let's
got
go.
great news for you. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. Our patrons are the rich mommies, daddies, and non-binary globbies that we can fall back on when times are tough, burying our faces in your silken bosoms till trouble passes us by. And if you'd like to learn how to join their ranks, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Cecil, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Teddy Roosevelt's daughter. Alice Roosevelt.
All right. And Tom, you dug up the dirt on this dame. Are you ready to give us the skinny?
Let's go ask Alice. I think she'll know.
So tell us, Tom, who was Alice Roosevelt?
All right, for our live show in New York, I did an essay on FDR, and I've had it in my head to follow up and do an essay on Teddy Roosevelt at some point as well. And I was headed there this week when, purely by accident, my wife stumbled upon and pointed me to the life of Teddy's daughter, Alice Roosevelt. And the more I read about Alice, the more I realized that here is a character in every sense of the word that was so much larger than life that she nearly eclipsed the equally mammoth personality of her notoriously celebrated father. Alice Roosevelt is one of those characters who seems to be constantly in possession of just enough rope to hang herself and who manages still to wiggle free from real responsibility. She was a presidential wild child and a just marvelously poorly behaved human being, and I admire the unmitigated temerity of her. It would be easy to dismiss Alice as perhaps a bit of a brat, but this is a woman whose hijinks influenced and swayed major elections in American politics. For all her faults and foibles, the sheer audacity with which she lived her life is, at the very least, fascinating.
All right, nobody tell Tom about Paris Hilton.
It's too late for me to say nobody tell Eli that sometimes sheer audacity is enough. So sure, at least that.
Okay, no, hold on. How come Noah or I give a tiny little bit of backstory and everybody's like, boo, but Tom selects a topic like he's a food blogger blowing off the dust off grandma's fucking recipe card box, and then he spends a chapter telling us why he picked Nana's waffle pie and how it tastes like sunshine and growing up among the maples in Vermont, and no one says a goddamn thing, man.
Boo, Tom.
Because I say it with poetry, Cecil, with poetry.
Asshole.
Alice Lee Roosevelt was born
It's a really good intro,
on
Tom.
February 12th, 1884, just 2
Not talking
days
to Keith anymore.
before the absolute bleakest moment in her father, Theodore Roosevelt's life.
Tell Cecil I don't care.
Just 2 days after giving birth to her daughter, Alice's mother, also named Alice, took suddenly ill and died of an undiagnosed kidney failure. Just 11 hours earlier that day, Teddy's mother would die in the same house of typhoid fever.
Fucking Christ.
Theodore Roosevelt's journal chronicles his despair with a page marking the day with a large, simple X. And the single sentence, quote, "The light has gone out of my life," end quote. Young Alice's life was not off to a particularly smooth start.
Jesus fuck.
Well, I mean, but it's 1884, right? Like, so she's alive. I would say it was neutral, right? By the standards of the time.
Medium.
Alice's father, Teddy Roosevelt, was so utterly crushed by the loss of his wife, Alice, that he never again spoke of her and would not allow for her to be named in his presence and omitted her from his autobiography.
Cool, healthy, good, awesome.
Baby Alice was referred to as Baby Lee, a moniker she retained as she got older, frequently going by Mrs. L rather than Alice. Theodore, now bereft of wife and mother and with a 2-day-old daughter, was far too distraught for playing the role of a single father in 1884. Instead, he left baby Alice with his sister Anna, and he fucked off to his ranch out in North Dakota.
Tom, I know that the bereaved husband has a certain panache to it, but have you considered that Teddy Roosevelt was a bad dad who sucked?
Yeah, I have 100%, and I agree with that.
Okay, but national parks. He invented that. He invented
Teddy bears.
land
Teddy bears, man.
that we have. Yeah, he's a shitty dad.
He's a shitty dad.
Absolutely
He's a 100%.
That's correct.
This
Just
is
to be
not
clear
a
about
good
my
dad.
opinion on
Yeah,
that.
it's not a good dad.
Teddy bears are all right.
Teddy bears are okay, though.
Yep.
Anna, who was affectionately referred to as Bammy, took baby Alice in and raised her for 2 years until Theodore returned from his ranch-based grieving sabbatical and got remarried. And now that he had himself a woman for the child rearings, Alice was reunited with Father Teddy, and she now had a stepmom, a woman named Edith Caro. Bammy would remain a fixture in Alice's life, often acting as a buffer when shit got tense between Alice and her family.
Oh, okay. So she served the same purpose that alcohol did in Heath's family. I got you.
Okay. Yep. That tracks.
It's very happy.
I just love the idea of Alice walking around like, oh, yeah, no, I don't want to upset Dad too much. He'll run off to his ranch till he's ready to fuck someone new. Oh, no.
Or he could just drink and stay. Exactly. It's a useful solution.
And things in the family were rather often tense. Alice was, by all accounts, spoiled with gifts, but was often given short shrift when it came to receiving time and attention from her father. Her relationship with Edith, her stepmom, was strained. Although Alice wrote a bunch of, in hindsight, my stepmom didn't really owe me shit and busted her ass to love me anyway, kind of stuff in her autobiography, the pair did not often get along. For her part, Edith once remarked of Alice's mom that if she had lived, she would have bored Theodore to death. A comment that likely did not sit well with Alice.
Yeah, well, kids always get so damn sensitive when you bring up the bright side of their parents' deaths. There obviously would be bright sides. I mean, come on.
When Alice was threatened with being forced to attend a boarding school for rich kids who don't behave, she said, quote, "If you send me, I will humiliate you. I will do something that will shame you. I tell you I will," end quote. They did not send her.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw the mime she was definitely doing when she said that, you would not have sent her.
In 1901, Theodore Roosevelt became president after McKinley was shot and killed by an anarchist at the Pan American Exposition. This assassination put Teddy in the big chair, and Alice could not have been happier with suddenly discovering she was the president's daughter. In fact, to say that she embraced her new role as a socialite would not really do her response justice. Like her father, Alice had an intense need for public attention and adoration, so much so that she sometimes resented the amount of attention her father received for being the actual president of the United States, saying, quote, "He wants to be the bride at every wedding, the corpse at every funeral, and the baby at every christening," end quote.
The corpse?
Yes.
Not the eulogist? Okay, all right.
And while no one would dispute that Teddy loved the spotlight, Alice was enraptured by it. In the 15 months after making her debut into society, Alice attended 407 dinners, 350 balls, and 300 parties.
Jesus Christ. So if you're not doing the math in your head as you drive to work or whatever, that averages out to more than 2 of those things per day.
407 dinners, 350 balls, and 300 parties sounds like a 57 sequel to a Hugh Grant series.
That's how many movies it takes to capture all of Andy McDowell's face. So I get
there you go.
Oh.
There are like guys from the age of 40 to 50 who are like, good joke. And everyone else is like, what?
That seems mean. That seems mean.
And Alice was kind of the
Love
Paris
Andy McDowell.
Hilton of the early 1900s set, but with vastly more staying power. For those of you who are too young to remember, Paris Hilton was a hotel heiress who became famous for being vapid and cruel about 6 months after making a yawn-inducing sex tape before fading back into the stagnant cesspool of banality from which she briefly emerged. Now, Alice was also briefly in the limelight for sexual escapades. In her case, unfounded and untrue rumors of her participation in an orgy at a mansion in Rhode Island. Though the orgy story is bullshit, Alice's behavior skirted the boundaries of decorum. She smoked cigarettes in public, rode in cars with men, unheard of for a respectable lady to do at the time. She stayed out late partying. She placed bets with bookies. And I love this detail. She also had a pet snake named Emily Spinach, which is adorable.
See, this is why we got to let me do the essays, okay? If I was doing this, the orgy is recorded historical fact, like Charlize Theron killing her dad and Christopher Walken killing Natalie Wood.
It's not, well, the second one.
But honestly, by the standards that this show has beaten me into at this point, I feel like I like this woman just because she didn't take her pet snake over a waterfall in a barrel.
Mm-hmm. But she would. She would.
She Natalie would.
Sometimes Alice would go to the halls of actual fucking Congress and then just do prank war shit.
Legend.
In 1908, she amused herself by, and I am not kidding, putting tacks on the seat of a sitting congressman who, upon doing that actual sitting, leapt up, quote, like the burst of a bubble on the fountain, like the bolt from the blue, like the ball from the cannon, end quote.
Do you guys not look at the chair for just a brief second before you sit down?
I went to elementary school. Yeah, no, I look.
In fact, Alice's antics were so frequent and well known that Teddy, after threatening to throw Alice out the window in exasperation, told his friend of her, quote, "I can either run the country or I can attend to Alice, but I cannot possibly do both," end quote.
Well, until you rehired your live-in help in the form of a wife, you weren't doing either, Ted.
Yeah, really.
He was being very sad at a ranch, Cecil. He was sad at a ranch. You wouldn't understand it. I don't know why I'm doing this, like, defending that thing.
He's a
the
bad
worst.
dad. In 1905, William Howard Taft, then the Secretary of War, did we get a woo-woo for Taft?
I love William Howard Taft.
Yeah. Fun
Wow.
fact, the only president and Supreme Court justice in history.
Wow.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got a woo-woo for
Indeed.
Taft.
Fuck yeah,
He was
Eli.
also the Secretary of War. He led a delegation of 23 congressmen, 7 senators, a team of diplomats, officials, and businessmen on a mission to Japan, Hawaii, China, the Philippines, and Korea. For some reason, And I am hard-pressed not to imagine that it wasn't because those places are very nicely far away from the White House. Alice also went on this diplomatic mission. She fairly immediately courted controversy by jumping into the ship's swimming pool fully clothed. Years later, when Alice was in her 80s, Bobby Kennedy actually gave her some shit about this event, noting that it was outrageous behavior for the president's daughter, to which Alice replied that it would have only been outrageous if she had removed her clothes.
Yeah, not adding, dude, you killed Marilyn Monroe. Shut the fuck up.
Hey, Bobby Kennedy, if you're listening there, wherever you are, if you're worried about someone's shitty kid fucking up their legacy, that's some bad news.
Now, that stunt caught the attention of Nicholas Longworth III, a Republican from the House of Representatives and longtime member of the same social circles as the Roosevelts. The relationship between Alice and Nicholas took hold on the diplomatic tour, and the pair became engaged in 1905 after returning to the U.S. For his part, Longworth was 14 years older than Alice and was known as a player around D.C. Nonetheless, the two were married the next year in February of 1906 in a wedding with over 1,000 guests. At the wedding, Alice cut the cake with a sword she borrowed from a military aide moments before.
All right. Well, I don't know about you, but I need some smelling salts to recover from that level of scandal. So while I find a couch to faint on, we're going to take a little break for some apropos of nothing.
Mr. President,
Yes, Jenkins?
your daughter is here to see you.
Very good. Send her in then.
What's up, Jenkins? Nut Jack!
Oh.
Gotta be faster than that, Jenkins!
Yes, ma'am.
Darling, I've told you about striking Jenkins in the testicles each time you see him. Now?
First of all, it's called a fucking nut check. Second of all, he needs to get fucking good, you know what I mean?
Right, Alice. This is precisely why I was hoping to speak to you. Your behavior of late has brought the family no small measure of scandal.
What the fuck did I do?
All right, well, there was the incident with a billiard ball at the Georgian ball.
I said duck.
And you told the Herald that you wanted to, quote, make Senator Willoughby's cheeks clap. And, quote, what does that even mean?
Trust me, Dad, you don't even want to know about that.
Look, Alice, far be it from me to quench a fiery spirit, but this is too far. Why must you be so rebellious?
Well, if I'm being honest, Dad, it's because I miss you.
Miss me?
Yeah, for so long, I had only myself to count on, and now that you're the figure of public attention, it feels like you've gone away from me again all over.
Oh, my dear Alice.
Father, there's one more thing.
Yes, my dear.
Not Jack!
Oh!
Gotcha! All right, gotta go. I gotta go fucking ride a fucking horse to the fucking Library of Congress.
Oh, very good, darling. Very good.
And we're back. When we left off, Alice Roosevelt was awesome far before it was legal for women to do that. What happened next, Tom?
Well, in 1912, Alice found herself torn between loyalty to her father and his party, the Bull Moose Party, and her husband, a lifelong Republican. I know. Just kidding. Alice wasn't torn at all. She backed her father, so much so that she appeared on stage with the Bull Moose candidate running against her own husband. When her husband lost by 105 votes, Alice joked that she was responsible for at least 100 of the votes that cost her husband the election.
And to a lot of people nowadays, the Bull Moose Party proves that a third party candidate is a viable choice in a presidential election a century later.
Yeah.
No downsides whatsoever.
All right, now I know what you're thinking. Wow, she sounds like maybe not the most supportive partner. Well, she also just straight up had multiple, very poorly hidden affairs throughout the course of her marriage to Nicholas, including a long-standing affair with Senator William Borah, who knocked her up. Alice thought the whole thing was a riot, and she toyed with the idea of naming her daughter Deborah or Deborah to poke fun at the situation.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
Good
Baller. While she was swayed into finally naming her daughter Paulina, according to a family friend, quote, everybody called her Aurora Bora Alice.
Fucking awesome.
Her husband's just like, darling, are you
fantastic.
sure these antlers are the latest fashion and I should wear them to the party? Oh, yeah, honey, trust me. They're going to like it.
The world needs more prank-based kid naming. That is an underserved market.
Now, eventually, Teddy Roosevelt had to relinquish his claim on the presidency, which meant that Alice had to move out of the White House, which she was not thrilled about. So she buried a voodoo doll of the new First Lady, Nellie Taft, in the White House front lawn. She made such a nuisance of herself that the Tafts had to ban her from returning to the White House, even as a guest.
No, I get it. Until recently, Melania would go back there to take her annual shit every year. It was the worst.
Now, as unlikely as that sounds, she would eventually also be banned from re-entering the White House by the Wilson administration after telling a bawdy joke. And in response to being banned from the White House by Woodrow Wilson, Alice worked to lobby against the entry of the United States into the League of Nations.
Jesus
So
Christ.
that's what people did before Yelp reviews.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Sure.
It's less efficient. I don't know. Setting out to cripple the main vehicle of world peace over a poop joke that didn't get as much credit as you thought it deserved is sadly something that I can absolutely relate to.
She is a petty, petty woman. It's kind of awesome. At this point, the Great Depression struck, and Alice, former socialite and presidential bad girl, started making cigarette commercials and giving people even more shit. During the 1940 presidential campaign, she remarked that she'd, quote, rather vote for Hitler than vote for Franklin for a third term, end quote. And while that may sound like she didn't like her cousin Franklin, I don't think that's what she was about, because she compared Thomas Dewey, who was running against Franklin, to the, quote, bridegroom on the wedding cake, end quote. And I guess that must have been a real zinger in 1944, because
Like a more than Hitler zinger.
it must have been, because that comment and the image stuck somehow, and Dewey lost 2 consecutive presidential election bids.
Endorsing Hitler doesn't make her sound like she hates her cousin. It makes her sound like she wouldn't have to shell out any money for a flag at the Unite the Right rally.
Yep. And hating your political opponent so much that you end up supporting a literal Nazi is still a proud American tradition. Legacy.
Now, Alice's daughter, Paulina, didn't fare too well, and not much is really written that reflects too keenly on the maternal instincts or parental abilities of Alice. Paulina married a guy, and they had a daughter, Joanna, and that means that Alice was now a grandmother, and that sounds nice, but the guy died pretty much right away, and then Paulina overdosed on sleeping pills and died, leaving the care and feeding of Joanna to Alice. Despite not having been too interested in momming at a very high level, Alice took to Joanna quite readily. The two were very close, and Alice was described by a friend as having, quote, been a wonderful father and mother to Joanna. Mostly father, end quote.
So she fucked off to a ranch without the kid when times got tough?
Now, Alice remained politically connected all of her very long life, making sometimes strange and contradictory friends across both ends of the political spectrum. She had a very unlikely friendship with Bobby Kennedy, despite holding herself to be a lifelong Republican. The Kennedys, in fact, were a source of amusement to her so much that she claims that they taught her, quote, how amusing and attractive Democrats could be, end quote. Her friendship with Bobby Kennedy was all the more unlikely because Bobby Kennedy was known to be somewhat thin-skinned, and Alice was, as you might have guessed, all too happy to poke at Bobby every chance she got.
Yeah, to be fair, his skin would have to be really thick to have stopped that bullet.
Jesus Christ.
Well, and also the other 12 bullets from Sirhan's hands.
Okay.
Yeah, you had your chance, Heath. You had your chance.
And I took it. That's a lie. CIA or something, I forget.
When Bobby was assassinated in 1968, Alice supported her close friend, Richard Nixon. Nixon and Alice were so close, in fact, that Nixon was a pallbearer at Alice's daughter's funeral. This friendship ended with the Watergate scandal, reminding us all that there was a time in history when consequences mattered.
God, it's gotten so bad that we're pining for the days when at least and the ex-president's daughter wouldn't hang out with you anymore was a consequence for wrongdoing. That's what we miss.
Now, during Nixon's resignation, he made the mistake of quoting from Teddy Roosevelt's diary, saying, quote, "Only if you've been to the lowest valley can you know how great it is to be on the highest mountaintop," end quote. Borrowing from her father's journal during his scandalous, shameful resignation infuriated Alice, who spat and cursed at the television in rage and disgust. And despite the loss of her friendship, Nixon would later call her, quote, "the most interesting conversationalist of the age. No one, no matter how famous, could ever outshine her," end quote.
Just a sad-faced Nixon having to resort to leave an attack on his own chair.
President Carter, the only president she ever declined to meet in her lifetime, wrote of her, quote, "She had style, she had grace, and she had a sense of humor that kept generations of political newcomers to Washington wondering which was worse, to be skewered by her or to be ignored by her," end quote. Words which are themselves pretty fucking gracious, considering he was the only president she chose to actually ignore.
Yeah.
Gordon's just walking by her house in Washington doing pratfalls. Is she looking at me now? Like, no, come on. I'm shitting myself. I shot myself. Alice, I shot myself. I'm the president. It's everywhere. My socks are wet. Alice.
On February the 20th, 1980, Alice Roosevelt died at the age of 96, and she was a fucking treasure. I'm going to leave the essay with a few quotes from Alice Roosevelt that demonstrate further some of that humor, wit, and irreverence that she was known for. To Senator Joseph McCarthy, who at a party said, "Here's my blind date. I'm going to call you Alice." She replied to him, "Senator McCarthy, you are not going to call me Alice. The truckman, the trash man, and the policeman on my block may call me Alice, but you may not."
Damn.
To Lyndon Johnson, who you may recall was a total fucking perv, Alice told him she wore wide-brimmed hats around him to prevent him from kissing her. In commenting on a sex scandal between a senator and a woman half his age, she scoffed, quote, "You can't make a souffle rise twice," end quote. But her most famous quote was this that I will leave you with. "If you can't say something good about someone, sit right here by me."
She had that embroidered on a pillow.
She did.
And if you had to summarize what you've learned in one sentence, Tom, what would it be?
If your parents were distant or imperfect, you can indulge in a lifetime of selfish, immature whims and blame it on not getting enough hugs.
Oh, there you go.
You can become a podcaster. You can do a lot of stuff.
And are you ready for the quiz?
Absolutely.
All right, Tom. We learned about the Bull Moose Party earlier. Which party would be the most likely in today's highly polarized political landscape? A, Marjorie Taylor Greene's Barbecue Party. B, Matt Gaetz's girlfriend's high school graduation party. C, Mitch McConnell's retirement party. Or D, party to an insurrection.
Oh. Okay, these all hit pretty close to home. These hurt a little bit.
Because you're never going to see C.
C is happy.
C is, well, I was going to guess C because it's the one I want the most.
But it's not true.
I'm going to guess
it's B. It's
Damn
Matt Gaetz's girlfriend's high school graduation party. That's
I kind of felt like I knew that.
He's so close to dead. Mitch, his hands are
I
turning.
mean, if he just dies, then we will have a retirement party for him, right? So that will technically be...
Well, we'll have a party.
Well, it'll be Mitch McConnell's retirement party.
All right, Tom. What did
Yes.
Jimmy Carter do to deserve so much historical ire? A, he's actually a self-made man. He's the first in his family to graduate from fucking high school. B, he dropped out of a highly successful career in the Navy to save his family's fucking peanut farm.
How successful can a career in the Navy be?
C, he supported civil
Murdery.
rights in the governor's race in Georgia in 1966. Or D, he's fancy schmancy Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay, I feel like that's a trick question because none of those things deserve Is this a trick question?
It is a trick
E.
question.
All of the none of these. None of all of these?
Yeah, that's it.
E, being shitty at
none
the
of-
presidency.
He's a
How
great
about
president.
that? Okay.
I think he was a
changed the
Democrat.
paradigm
Isn't
of
that
the
all you have to
question
be? It's
thing,
just
but-
he's a Democrat.
There you go.
I like Jimmy Carter.
Okay, so Tom, I have a question for you to close things off. What amazing fact about Alice Roosevelt would it be the biggest shame not to at least mention during this episode? A, she was such a fashion icon that there's a shade of blue named after her.
Yes.
B, when her dad told her she couldn't smoke cigarettes under his roof, she started smoking them on top of the roof. She'd just climb up of the White House, by the way. C,
over the roof.
Yeah,
Fuck
yeah,
you.
exactly.
Nice work.
C, after getting a second mastectomy in her 80s, she started referring to herself as Washington's only topless octogenarian. Or
Probably not accurate.
D, she openly declared herself to be a hedonist and a pagan and repeatedly dismissed Christianity as, quote, sheer voodoo.
What?
Nice.
But not paganism.
No.
Well, those are clearly all correct answers, and they're all like little snippets that I just didn't know how to weave them
Right,
into the
yeah,
narrative.
no,
So I'm
I
glad
know.
they made it here because they're
She's
all
so good.
awesome facts about her.
That is correct.
Noah is announced that she's part of our brand. She's one of us, so Noah wins.
There you go. And it has been way too long since our last Heath essay, so I think he should do the next one.
All right. Well, for Cecil, Noah, Tom, and Heath, I'm Eli Bosnick. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Heath will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can listen to Tom and Cecil over on Cognitive Dissonance, and you can listen to Heath, Noah, and myself on a variety of podcasts because we don't have day jobs. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, to keep us from those day jobs, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes, be sure to check out citationpod.com. Alice, I know you and I haven't always gotten along, but I hope you know here at the end that I always respected you.
And Richard, I hope you know that I'm so.
Oh, Alice, I couldn't quite hear you. What was that?
Not Jack!
Oh, gosh.
Fuck yeah! I did a fucking war criminal. Now get out of my fucking house! Out!
Oh, right in the Watergate.
Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/get-started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get-started.